Welcome to the Seafood Matters podcast, a voice for the UK fishing industry. I'm your host, Jim Cowie. Having over 60 years hands-on experience in the seafood industry, I've owned fishing boats, processed and exported fish, and auctioned fish on numerous fish markets. Over the last 20 years, I've been the owner, chef, of the highly awarded Captain's Galley seafood restaurant in Scrabster in the far north of Scotland. Now it's time to introduce you to fishermen, seafood chefs, fishery scientists and industry leaders that I have worked with along the way.
That's in a story in books and belonging to Stroma. We watched the new harbour getting built and boats, so there's a few boats about at the time. Like I can remember maybe about 100 people on the island, but there was 495 in the late 19th century.
Is that right?
400. It's just short of 400. And I don't know how they must have made a living from the cod or the fishing or whatever. They were catching an awful lot of cod. My grandfather landed his fish twice a day, maybe 30 hundred, 2 ton of cod. He was doing that twice a day, you know, it's just no bother to them.
Where did they land them?
Well, they salted a lot of them and they went away to London or Orkney, wherever, Jim. There's Orkney shops, I never mind them come in, but there's floating shops come into Stroma from Orkney, like Stromness, and they swap the fish for lobsters, for groceries and whatever, you know, eggs and they could barter with, you know, for hen's meal and clothes, and that used to float into Stroma and just anchor up, one at the north end, one at the south end. They go a week about there, or month, whatever they came.
I thought it was only the one harbour that was here.
No, there's one at the north end too.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh God, there's a fleet of boats there too. It was the lighthouse pier.
What was it ever classed as? Part of an Orkney island or
Oh no, the only Caithness island that's in it.
Aye.
It's the only Caithness island that...
And what does Stroma stand for? Is it island?
Stroma stands as Norse for island in the tide.
In the tide?
Island in the tide,
yeah.
Let's oh my God, it's all Norse names. There's 2 names in Stroma and nobody could tell me where they came from. They were like Gaelic. Scaregut, and it's spelled like the Gaelic. Scaregut is one that's a rock at the northeast corner, and the other is a Scaregut. It's Scarbian. You'll have to delete it there, whatever. Scaregut is a bit of ground between the north end pier and the northeast corner, and the other one is Scarbian. That's a wee rock at the corner there. You'll see it from the mainland there, but that's the only 2 names. That everything else is Norse, like Whallyo, like Whale-yo, and this sort of thing.
It's funny that there's Gaelic in an area where it's all Norse.
Nobody thought it was connected. Everybody thinks it's not connected to Gaelic at all for some reason. No. But that's the only 2 names that are like that.
And you went to school there?
I went to school there, and then I went to high school in Wick, Jim. 3 years there. But there's one of my teacher in Stroma was an auntie, and my father had 5 sisters who were all teachers. They were all teachers and teach. They were in the high school in Thurso here, and they were taught down in Glasgow, wherever, you know. Uh-huh. The youngest one was Diney. She was a teacher in Dunbeast for a lot of years, retired there. She taught years and years in Dunbeast. They were all...
You must have, growing up with your father's family, and
sure,
there must have been a great knowledge just built in with the tides and...
Oh, it was, things were handed down, I'm sure, for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Hundreds of years, Jim.
I mean, I know myself, John, when I'm just going about my day, depending on different parts of the
situations
season,
that you're in.
Yeah, with the sky. I'm 74 shortly, and I still would say that anything that when I'm looking at a planet or stars or anything connected with navigation or anything like that, It's my father I learned it from.
Oh, it's all handed down that, Jim, honestly. My God, they had a great knowledge of it.
Tremendous knowledge.
We got we were at Dunnet Head one night. We used to fish Dunnet Head a lot. And we were coming home in the fog. And the fog came down before we got home. So we had to go into Harrow Harbour, that's below the Castle of May. Mm-hmm. We harbour in there. We had to go in there about 10 o'clock at night because we couldn't see the island when we came to it. And there, waited till 4 in the morning till the daylight came back in, and then we left to get still thick fog, making it all we had was a compass. But we found ourselves home then in the morning about 4 o'clock. But my mother, she was stuck on Stroma on her own at a stage, and she didn't know where we drowned or where the heck we were. But she was there on her own, and we were in another wee harbour and couldn't get home. You know,
was there a lot of people lost with the sea tides?
No, really, Jim. There wasn't any. Mm-hmm. There was 4 fellas lost at going to they had a whiskey still. Customs come in, caught them, taken to court in Orkney, and the 4 of them were drowned going to the court. The gale got up. Now the other one was the Boers at Duncan's Bay. There was 3 men lost there. Well, one was 16-year-old. Like they were. The story goes they were racing home, but they landed up in the Boers at Duncan's Bay and they were drowned there. Uh-huh. That was a boat with an engine in it. The boat was picked up the next morning off Duncan's Bay Head, where the engine had rumbled out through the bottom, and here she was floating then with no bottom in her engine. But that's the only deaths I remember. Uh-huh. There was a fishing boat lost at Pentland Skerries, but his neighbour picked him up, and you know what happened to it? It took a wee roll. It's so full of cod. It took a wee roll and shipped the water in. The boat sank, and the other boat picked him up and landed him on the Pentland Skerries, and the lighthouse keepers gave them dry clothes, and they got into the other boat. They all went home in the one boat, but they lost the boat. Like load of cod.
Is that right?
There was very few people lost in the sea like that. No.
It's amazing because am I right in saying that it's the strongest currents in the world almost?
It's the Navy recorded what I remember them saying about 14 to 15 knots between the lighthouse at Strome on Swilky Point and the lighthouse on Swana on the Tar Tail there. Uh-huh. Just out in the middle there's 14 or 15 knots of tide. And it's horrendous. Like
I've heard boats trying to go through the Firth and no moving.
It's just a dead slow and stop. that carry on.
But I mean that's fast. That's fast for a modern fishing boat.
Terrible, Jim. Terrible. I went round the lighthouse. We're down with a lifeboat looking for a boat that had broken down, that had gone right through and the out of the Pentland Skerries eventually. But we were doing 31 knots going round the lighthouse. The boat was doing 19, but there was another 12 then on with the cover in the ground, 31 knots.
It would just be a wave coming off it.
Turger poles are passing like teeth in a comb, Oh dear.
There was a boat went ashore there. So.
Boats. It was a lot of boats, Jim. Aye.
It was a cargo ship or something went.
Oh, hey, that was later on after everybody left that day. Bettina Danica.
That's it.
The story was that he fell asleep and he was right up the back of Strome, and that's how he's heading out the way from it when he hit the tail at the southwest corner there. 3 years old, that boat.
I mean, it's obviously given you a colossal knowledge base on the tides and that, because John, I've been a long time in Scrabster as well, and I know I've been there with fishermen.
Yes.
When they would call you and ask you about going through the
That's right.
It must be such a dangerous.
There's sometimes they call me up and they say it's kind of rough. Should we go in through Scotland, go out through Hoyside, or will we keep going through the other end? Round the south end of Hoy there.
And does it make a difference which way they go with different tides?
They're looking for a better passageway weather, Jim. That's what it is. It can be.
And can you get better passages going
You usually did. You had to pick the place you went, like, oh dear.
I've quite often seen boats when they're going west. I'll be right close into the Caithness coast
I
as
know.
you can. Is that
It's far more advantageous to go to the area at Stroma. There's no tide there, it's going the other way with you there.
right?
You know where it breaks on the island,
Uh-huh.
and there's no tide inside there at all.
Of course.
No.
Yeah.
The ebb tide, the big area at the west side of Stroma there with the thing, the bit going north is called the Langberth, and the wee bit going south is called the Southberth. There, it's different names they had for it all. I'll tell you who was lying in the area at the west side of Stroma Lighthouse there was Gunter Preen that went in and sank the Royal Oak. He was lying with his periscope depth there, hiding there till the darkness came down.
Is that right?
Honestly, it's in his book, I've read it. Oh, I can tell you it's a dead cert that.
I mean,
He lay underwater at periscope depth, waiting for the darkness there at the west of Stroma. Ebb tide there.
they wouldn't have been seen.
Never seen him that.
And then he was done by,
Then he went into the Scapa then and he blew up the Royal Oak in the
That's right.
Scapa.
yeah. Wow.
The other side is flood tide. It's got when the flood comes on first, it runs not such a good eddy, but once it makes an eddy, the north end, it's called the Ferracu, the first inside eddy there. I've never known why it was called it. Everybody called it, all the Strowmen called it Ferracu. And the south end then, it's just called the west tide. That's the funny thing about the tide. The tide is called the direction it's going in. The wind is called the direction it's coming from.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
You get a westerly wind, it's coming from the west.
Yeah.
If you get a west tide, it's going west.
And I've heard quite often it's probably when it's worst in the Firth is it if you get wind against tide.
Oh, terrible, Jim. That's what creates that bore for Duncan's, you know, a easterly wind and a swell, and the tide going into then the flood tide. And the other side's got the Merry Men Away. It goes all the way to Torness there. That's where the westerly wind is.
Well, I'd be right in saying you could almost see the line of the Merry Men of May.
Oh, absolutely, Jim. You'll see the tide there the whole time.
Yeah.
Any swell at all, like,
Yeah.
Seen us coming home from the west, like Brock Bay area, and we'd come down there and there'd still be a wee bit of ebb running there. We'd have to leave it in mountains of seas there. We just waited till the tide stopped and it was flat like the floor there.
It's funny, I don't know, you probably relate to this, John. I remember asking my father one time when we were younger about the Pentland Firth and just how bad it was.
He'd be well quick.
He was. And you know how he described it? He says the best way to describe it for him was, look at that boiling pot. Of the cooker.
I would say he never put any more real than that, Jim. No.
That's what he used to call it. Just a boiling pot.
We used to leave at 3 a.m. to get west before the flood tide came on. 3 o'clock in the morning, and you got the ebb tide west all the way with you, you know.
I used to see, I'm not so sure if it happens now, but very often you would get boats that are fishing the west, and if they were coming through east, they would come into Scrabster and wait for the tide. Would that amount of hours staying in Scrabster, would that save them anything?
Well, they would save them the fuel of steaming through there. They'd be through there in an hour, but if they steamed through, it'd be hours steaming. That's certainly better to the. In fact, I've heard of the coasters coming, and they realised they were getting to the Perth, the strong tide, but they'd ease the boat down a bit so it'd be eased by the time they got here.
I've also heard that some of the big ships coming out of North America, going to the like of Rotterdam, the channel is a much more dangerous way to sail with there's so much shipping. But a lot of them do that to avoid the tide.
Yes, I'm sure they will, Jim.
The Pentland Firth.
Yes, I'm sure.
Which it's obviously world renowned.
Oh,
by seagoing people.
Oh my God! It's renowned for the dangerousness of it and that, you know. We were hauling creels one morning at just west of the lighthouse, and this fishing boat came down, and it's ebb tide, and he came down, and his head came off the tide, the main tide, and he just about stemmed the lighthouse, and he didn't even realise it. You know, but he turned them round about there, the edge of the tide, and it's quite dangerous. This is broad daylight with no weather, you know.
Wow.
No, it's quite dangerous.
Another thing I've heard you say in the chat sometimes, John, is, you know, we were brought up and thinking that tide is 6 hours to come in, a half an hour,
That's
6
right.
hours to go. There's always an hour.
Just a delay there where it slacks up.
And 6 hours. But I've heard you saying that doesn't go in the Firth.
No, the Stroma's got an hour of difference between the south end and the north end.
My goodness.
The beacon there, it'll be slack. Say it's flood tide, and when it comes high water, the tide will stop at the beacon, but it's still roaring at the lighthouse. You know.
I mean, what's that? That'll not be a mile, is it?
It's about a couple of miles, that, Jim.
Is it?
Maybe just over a couple of miles. But that's an hour of difference here, not 2 miles.
Now, when you think of it, it's only about 3 or 4 hours, is it, from Scrabs to Wick?
The high water, the Stroma Lighthouse is the same as high water in Wick.
Is that right?
That's when it slacks there at the high water Wick. It's a funny old place.
I remember when my father was at the sea, and it's tide books they would go by.
That's right, Jim.
They would go by. Obviously, Helmsdale wasn't on the books.
There'll be a constant for it then.
Yeah, Liverpool.
Yes, that's right.
I'll never forget that. They would follow the tide for Liverpool, because that was the same as
It's
Helmsdale.
funny you should say Liverpool, because Liverpool goes for the west end, the middle of the Firth here.
Yeah.
It's funny that one.
But yeah.
Along the east coast, it'd be something very similar. You know, like a week and no far beyond it. Like, well.
And is it anything to do with the closeness between the land, between Orkney and...
I would say so. It's a narrowness there. It's like the Atlantic trying to get into the North Sea, Jim, and it's not got the room. It'll build up. The other thing that this makes it build up at this end, down at Stroma, where the rise and fall will be 9 feet, but Scrabster here will be about 19 feet. You know, this is the rise and fall, the maximum. You know.
Well, so what would that? It could be about 19, 20 feet in Scrabster.
And 9 at Stroma.
That's just crazy.
So you had to know all that things to be. You know, it's all passed in from generations. That things, Jim.
Obviously, I'm
dear.
quite sure maybe a generation or two before yourself, a lot of that would be this planets and stars and...
That's right, Jim. Oh dear.
I remember. I used to think it was quite funny when they used to talk about, like in either nature programs, geography or whatever, they would be talking about the importance of the sun.
Yes.
You know, and okay, we need the sun to get warmth, to live and whatnot. But my father used to say he was more interested in the moon.
Very interesting, all that moons and...
Because that was the tide.
Oh, that's what they put the tides in the go. You know, you get your neap tide and your spring tide. Well, the neap is when the two are opposite each other on the earth. But when they're both pulling in the one line, you're getting the spring tide. They're both pulling together.
Okay.
The thing is, oh dear. It's a funny old game to learn it out,
It's fascinating.
Oh,
you know, there's a thing that happened to me, John, and I've asked scientists, science teachers, all kinds of people that I thought,
sure.
and fishermen and that. We were in the middle of London.
Uh-huh.
The family, my father driving, my mother in the passenger seat, 3 kids in the back, my brother, my sister and myself.
I see.
Our younger brother hadn't been born by then, but the 3 of us in the back.
Dear.
And I'll never forget, we were driving an old Ford Popular in London, lost our way.
Needing some navigation.
And you know, I'll never forget it till my dying day. My father said he was just looking up at the windscreen, and he said, if I could just see the sun, I would know what side of the Thames I was on.
Sure.
I've never met anybody able to explain to me.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. I'm sure you could do. Sun's a great mark for getting, not a mark, but a signal for getting in and out. You know?
It's, nobody has been able to tell me. And it's not a case of where he was in the world. What side of the river?
You think there's the Thames you're in?
And if he knew what side of the Thames he was on,
oh, sure.
he would have got
Oh, God, they would know all the signals and signs and things.
Yeah.
Oh,
So when in your life did you actually leave Stroma?
18 years old when I left, Jim.
Okay.
I met the wife before I left Stroma.
You met your wife then? And did you stay at the fishing?
Yes.
I remember you as a fisherman.
Yes, that's right, Jim. Oh gosh, yes, I stayed at fishing all my life.
And when did that? I mean, you were coxswain of the local lifeboat. When at what stage was that? Was that before?
I was in my 20s when I was late 20s when I took the coxswain's second coxswain's job, Jim. I was in the lifeboat for 23 years there. But we did a rescue in Stroma of the Faroese fishing boat when we were there ourselves.
Okay.
The Else was the name of it. They struck the Nissa Duncans be there. We left Stroma. My mother got out of bed 7 o'clock in the morning. It's a February morning night. And she says there must be some activity, there are a lot of lights and things over there. So we never took breakfast or anything. We just went in case there was anybody needing saved or helped or whatever. We went down there and we rescued 4 crew out of the boat. I went up and we were breakfast with them, photos and all of it. I have photos of it.
Is that right?
We had our breakfast with them. And that was in 1961. And when I was in the ice plant working, I always thought to myself, I wonder if there's any Faroese fishing boats are all taking you take them in yourself, of course. And they were all coming into Scrubs at the time. And I said, I must ask somebody if they know any of this people. So I board the granny, the greenie, whatever they call it.
The granny.
I board it and I says, I took down a photograph of this 4 guys. I says, do any if you know about that? He says, they're from our village.
Wow.
One of the guy. Good God. I said, do you know about the Else? Yes, he says.
They were from their boat, the granny. Eric was there.
Eric was a skipper. It was one of his crewmen.
It was in the Sudaroy in the South Island.
That's right, yes, that's right, Jim. Anyway, he says he says, if you see the new boat coming in, it's the chief engineer in it is he'll be in with the boat. So he says, ask that boat if he knew about it, see. So he says, the skipper says to me, this guy is not on board, but he says, I'll tell him to see you when he comes in or come down next trip. So my God, the next trip, this guy come over and thanked me for rescuing them.
Well,
Hakan Jakobsen. He came over and thanked me. He thanked me for rescuing them, that guys, you know. There were.
Yeah, I thought I used to enjoy dealing with the Faroese. I just thought we had so much in common.
That's right.
There was one guy I'll never forget. I thought you were talking about tides earlier. He was. They had no landing gear.
Yes.
So we used to land them with cranes.
Oh, it's Simpson's
cranes. So they would come, moor up, away to the pub, and we would be discharging the fish. And when he came back, the next day, he was in an awful state. He could hardly move. So I says to him, "What's on earth is wrong with you?" So he came back from the pub, not aware of the rise. They've not got the rise and fall of the tides.
No, that's right. They don't even bother.
In Faroes,
that's right.
Obviously, like you're saying in the Stroma.
They hardly tie a ladder.
Yeah,
that's right.
So he came back from the pub, just walked off the pier and dropped about 20 feet onto the deck of the boat. So, he was just an awful state. So I was up in the Faroes no long after that, and I met his cousin, and I says to him, "How did your cousin get on when he arrived home?" He says, it was actually quite funny. He said he was in the bedroom, he was getting ready for bed. And he's taking his clothes off, and his wife looked and says, "My goodness, what happened to you there?" He was black and blue, all down one side. And he turned to his wife and he says, "It's nothing." He says, "We got a big sea. It threw me against the wheelers." Look at all
the tales of lies about it. It's in regular up. Oh dear.
But thinking back of the tides and that, John, that must have been a huge help to you and the lifeboat, your knowledge of the...
In Elixir Stroma, you didn't go anywhere unless the tide, you knew when to go or what to go, but the Elixir lifeboat, you had to go at any rate.
It's all knowledge.
But the lifeboat was called for, and you had to go regardless of what we were going to the lifeboat when everybody else was making home, what.
John, we had the restaurant for 20 years, Cal's Galley, and it was right in front, the lifeboat's right in front of it.
Yes. Yeah.
And, of course, if anybody was eating in the restaurant when they got the shout, when they got a shout, and cars were arriving and people diving on board, I used to always say to any customer, because obviously they were all interested to see it. This is new to them.
Yes,
never seen it before. And I always made the point, John, I says, when all that lads get a shout, and he says they're going hell for leather to get there, I says there's only one thing they don't consider. Themselves.
That's it, Jim. It's just you go regardless,
Yeah. You probably don't know what you're going to see. You don't. You're going to come across dead bodies.
Some ended good and some not so good, Jim.
It must be incredible. Your knowledge of that tides must have been fantastic for that.
It would all you have to do with it eventually, No, there were. It was. As I say, some of them ended good, but some of them were not good. That's for life saving there.
Yeah.
Life. That's a thing. I got all the details on, and I finished with the lifeboat.
Certificate of service. Well, they're going to try to place something in your wall, rightly so as well. It's
Exodus. They were. But you enjoy that thing, say Jim. I'll tell you one thing about the lifeboat. People ask me, what do you think about people that are swimming or whatever? I says, first, one thing you don't do is ask them what their religion is. Regardless of what he is, he's to be rescued, You can't ask a guy in the water if you're a Christian or a Roman Catholic or whatever, you rescue that guy, You know what I mean? So back and tell you a quick story about your granny. They come in one night to land, and I says, they spoke to some of the guys that I knew their faces. Like, I says to one guy, I says, in my best Faroese, have you much fish tonight? And he says, I'm from the East Nuka Fife. Married in the Faroes. I thought it was so cool.
A slightly different story I had one day. We landed aboard, got his tonnage and his price. So I went down and gave him his tally, saying how much he grossed. And he was, okay, thank you, and whatnot. And then I went back up to the office, and who was there, Lassie Jane was working in the office. She says, oh, you've made a mistake here. I says, what sort of mistake? She says, oh, you're short changed him. He says, he's got more fish. So we made the new tally up, and I went back down and got the skipper. And in his broken English, here's me standing in the pier saying, can I get tally? Tally. Sorry, didn't understand. I'm saying sales note. Paper. And he's no making out any of it. I'm saying, I made a mistake. Error, mistake. No understanding any of it. And after about 5 or 10 minutes, I said, look, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, and you're entitled to more money. More money?
He knew what that was.
He was with me right away.
Oh, they're good, some of them, man. You understood that, don't we?
But that's funny when you say about the high and low water. That's once where it came off. The guy come off worst with it, because when you think of the drop 20 feet on a deck of a boat.
Oh dear.
The one good thing would have helped him, he would have been well sozzled, so
plenty of painkillers.
But I remember a time, John, we've spoken about it, I remember myself anyway, you'd have probably been one of many situations. But Donald Mackay, Star as we called him at the time, well-known local fisherman, and just a frightening thing we heard that he actually broke down, his engine stopped in the Firth, which I just thought was frightening. And they were saying at the time it was something like 12 to 14 knot tides.
Yes.
And I remember speaking to yourself, John, and you turned quite cool, calm and collective and said, well, he won't hit Stroma.
Never hit it at all, Jim. No. Whenever the tide hits it there, it out the way it goes, it bounces off the island, in other words, you know.
Would he hit a rock, or would he just...
You hit nothing, no.
Is that right?
Never
hit
anything.
Well, he didn't on that occasion.
The Plymouth Skerries is the same.
I think they got him in the North Sea somewhere.
It's west he was going, it's ebb tide it was on then.
Oh, was it?
I'll tell you how I knew Billy Pracker was aboard him. Billy was a crewman.
Billy, that's right, Billy. You were on board him for a while, were you?
No.
Were you never aboard Star?
We used to gut fish for them in the harbour when they come in.
Oh, right, okay. I can remember you fishing in a Helmsdale boat.
Aye, Silver Star. It was Willie Joppy, aye.
That was Willie. That'll be James's
father.
They
were on board. Willie.
Aye.
Alistair and James. They were both on board the boat.
Yeah. Well, Willie's mother and my father's mother were sisters.
Never.
Yeah. It was they were Joppy, we were Cowie. But
yes.
Through mothers.
I see.
There was a relationship.
They were dash good to me in Hill, so I'll tell you, they were nice people.
They were decent people. Willie was a
fine soul, so Willie didn't say very much at all. You know.
Good fisherman.
Aye.
Yeah, but
I think before they got that new boats, they had the new boats had like a twin derrick at the stern, like a for taking the fishing board. And all they had was a mast before this and a block at the top of it. And they took that much too big a lift and put the mast down through the cabin in her.
Jeez.
I mind them telling me that, Jim.
Yeah.
To get back to Stromar, I never told you about the whirlpools there in the tide, Jim. No.
No?
There's bad ones there, the ones, the scoot at Scarton, that's one of them. That's where the graveyard is at the southeast corner. And there's one at the Scary Whale, which is at the east side of the beacon there. And the other one is the Rip on the west side of it with flood tide. And the most dangerous one is the Swalky at the Lycus. It's all treacherous for small boats.
Were you still on the lifeboat when you were working in the ice plant?
Yes, I was, Jim.
Yeah.
Yes. We went over to the name of the long lifeboat ceremony from here, and I had to leave the Mr. Simpson to look after the ice here for me. Yes, I'm still in it.
There's a funny saying, I'm sure you know exactly, that when they built the new pier in Stroma, everybody sailed off.
They thought, people were saying that they've gotten an inch for a fresh pay every week now. They thought they'd be better getting that on the mainland, but I don't know if that was true or not, Jim.
And Stroma Island in the, I thought it was island in the stream with it being Stroma.
It's island in the stream is the Norwegian name for it, for Stromsey. So I believe, that's the name for it. Like.
Orkney sometimes have it as one of their islands.
They've no chance, honestly.
Is that right?
It's the only island that belongs to Caithness.
The only island. Yeah.
There's stories that's in some of the books I have about the when the Norwegians came. It was about 5,000 years ago that they were there, you know.
I remember our son Ashley, who did a lot of history on
research on
Vikings, and I mean, this was had been a centre for them.
Yes. See, the Norwegians, they were everywhere. They were as far south as the Isle of Man, and they were everywhere. That west coast was full of them, like that.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
So you would have seen a lot boats either coming east or west.
All the time, Jim. All the time. I think for some reason Thursday used to be a favourite day for a lot of shipping going past and over in Stroma.
Okay.
Just to see
the
east and west, you know.
Even as a kid, it must have been exciting growing up.
It was a great hobby. The spying glass on them, see which one it was, and when he went past, and then we'd watch for it coming back again from the continent or whatever. You know, that's a great day, great hobby for the islanders.
And would you ever get to the stage when regular, maybe local fishing boats, they'd be quite far away and you would know who it was?
You could get their number, Jim. We knew what boat it was in, you know.
Aye.
We knew their numbers.
Aye. Yeah, I don't suppose that would have mattered whether it was INS or BCK or WK.
One of them. Monday morning, you used to see them all come around Duncan's Way, just have fleet of boats. You could nearly walk on them. You know, they're just.
Is that right?
Oh, it's
yeah.
Oh. They're all making waste, but there were smaller boats at that time, besides what they are now. Like, you know.
And you see, when a boat did go ashore, how would that have happened when the way the tide kept them off? Would they just be too close, or?
They've steamed on, but if you stop them, they'll not touch anything.
Oh,
it's steaming. I do believe that's what happened to the Cathay Nider Kitchener that went on the Pemton Skerries. They was splitting on the main island, and he was south, and he stemmed the tide there and couldn't get up through it. If he'd stopped the boat, he'd be okay, but this is what they maintain. He stemmed there, but he went inside on top of the island then. Okay. But he was steaming, trying to get clear of there.
Do you remember, going back a long time now, I'm sure you'll remember him, John, Sandy Bruce. Was it the Celerity?
Oh, Sandy, so I knew Sandy well.
I mean, he was lost in all hands, wasn't it? On the
Whole lot, Jim, boat and all.
On the Firth.
1983 or 84, that boat was lost.
Yeah, and they reckon he just drove down. He just drove it down. Would that be just wind against tide, or...?
No, the wind was with him. And I'll
right?
tell you what happened there. Out in the middle of the Firth, I know exactly where it happened, because the Bucky men told me. And it was about 5 miles north of Dunnet Head. Now the Crystal River was steaming with him, and he was inside where the flood was down there. But that ebb tide was lying for 3 hours more than inside. Heavy swell there when he got into that there, the just the very last of the ebb tide there, and it was just horrendous seas it was in it.
I mean,
The other boat that was inside, he was only about a mile or
when you say the Crystal River, was that Peter Smith?
No, I can't mind who the guy was. It was before that day, Jim. I can't mind the skipper's name.
Peter Smith had
Peter.
It's a long time whether he had the Crystal River. It's a long time. In fact, you know Alan Addison.
Yes.
Who's on the Venture now.
Oh yes.
Well, he started. Well, he left his father's boat and went to sea with Peter Smith.
I might Peter on the go. This is some other Crystal. This is a BA boat, I think it was.
Okay.
I can't mind the skipper's name, but this is, as we were speaking before about the tide in different places at different times. This is what happened. The flood tide was down. Inside it was making east, the flood tide, but out at where Sandy Bruce was, he must have said, oh, it's all flood tide, I'll get down through it, but he must have mistaken that wee bit of water there, I don't know, but it was...
I remember hearing from different fishermen speaking about it afterwards, that he was classed as somebody that knew the Firth.
Sandy was well acquainted at first. I just didn't know how he lost his boat there.
So it just shows how, no matter how acquainted you are, it's still...
Sandy says to me, we sold the Diligent, what they had before that. That was the Diligent. She was an old boat. And he said to me, we're getting rid of that old boat and getting a new boat. I'm frightened she'll go in bits in the Firth.
Is that right?
That's what he said to me himself. Sandy Bruce said that to me himself, Jim.
And it's exactly...
It's the new boat that got it in.
Yeah.
They came from the Flannan Isles, I think, that night.
I think that's right.
They said she wasn't such a good boat with just a few fish in her now. I think they only had 30 or 40 boxes of fish in her.
Yeah.
That's what the buffers told me.
I think the other boat I remember it was lost, or I remember the skipper that was lost. Alec Flett, his name was. He had it was an INS boat.
146. It was Alec Flett's boat.
Was it the Aquarius?
No, Coronia.
Coronia.
He was the lost, I don't think.
Was he not?
No, I can't mind him. No. Oh, dear.
Yeah, it's frightening really how... I remember when that George Robb was lost at Duncan's Bay.
Oh, we were in Stroma when that happened.
Were you really? Yeah. Well, my cousin, he was on the Coast Guard at the time, and he was saying that the lifeboats were looking for them, the bodies, and couldn't believe that they were seeing a lot of lights, and they couldn't believe that it would be small boats, lobster boats, and that out in such a poor night. And they discovered afterwards it was the life jackets of the crew.
I don't know that George Robb.
Yeah?
There was nobody floating about that George Robb, I don't think.
No. It just went straight into the...
Oh, hell. The Coast Guards had a light shining from the Bray Head on it, and they were seeing like flashing up they thought it was people flashing back, but they realised afterwards it was the windows and the thing that was boat rolling air, Jim.
Maybe that's what it was.
I mind the Frenchman that was lost at Rockall, he was the string of lights in the sea there. He had the raw individual men. They were all floating with life jackets on them with lights. When we were in Stroma at George Robin ashore, and my father said something's happened up there. We could smell the diesel and the oil coming down the wind. We were about maybe 5 miles northwest from it.
Right?
And so we could smell the diesel in the air.
God.
My father says something's happened there. He says their boat burst or sunk or something. He says, but it's the George Robin was. Nobody understood why he paraded off Wick all day in the daylight hours and went down there at night.
Aye.
I know what for a fact was the Coast Guard told me.
I thought he had, when he went between the stacks and that, they missed the Firth.
That was the other story that came right up, Jim. They thought maybe it was Duncan's way that he'd seen the stack.
Aye.
Thinking he was seeing, but I don't think he was seeing very much with the kind of night there was in it, you know.
Okay.
The Longhope lifeboat was down. The Wick, when Neil Stewart refused to go, which was quite right.
Is that right?
He couldn't get out of the Wick Bay, he reckoned.
Aye. There was a great closeness between Longhope and Thurso lifeboat.
Oh God, aye. Still I'd say, Jim, aye. Oh, aye. We even saw the Longhope lifeboat passing Stroma, going making down for it.
Is that right?
Oh, terrible. Terrible night that to be.
See, when the Longhope lifeboat itself was lost,
Aye.
were you on the lifeboat, the Thurso lifeboat then?
No, Jim, no. It was 1969
Uh-huh.
that she was lost. Aye.
I remember
It was not
seeing
long
that.
after that, like,
I remember seeing the upturned hill and
Oh, terrible.
lying in Scrabstead.
terrible.
I was coming up.
It's an awful tragedy. Yeah.
Oh, it's terrible.
You see my bonnet that I wear, all the badges on it.
Uh-huh.
One has the memorial to the Longhope lifeboat crew on it.
Is that right?
I always say that's the most important one that's on it. The other ones are birds and various other things, but one is their memorial.
I remember when, just in recent years, when they had the service for Kevin's son that was lost. Remember, it was Ryan.
Oh,
Ryan
yes, yes.
Davidson. And the Longhope lifeboat crew were over
Oh, they were very close there, Jim.
for that.
Oh, I knew that fellas that was on a lifeboat. Like.
Is that right?
We used to go into Longhope to my auntie's there, an auntie there. Like.
Uh-huh. So really, as far as anything happening in the Pentland Firth was concerned, any accidents or that, it was between the Longhope
Yes, it was,
lifeboat
Jim.
and the Thurso lifeboat.
Yeah, so it's all them that's involved, like, you know. Having said it now in this day and age, if they'd had a self-writer, they would have still survived it.
Is that right?
It wasn't a self-writing lifeboat.
So was the old saying, the cruel sea.
TGB, the name of her.
Yeah?
TGB was the name of the lifeboat. That was the name of the lifeboat.
Oh, I see, aye.
TGB, that's all it was, 3 letters.
Okay. That would have been the donator.
And something they got along that line.
Was it always, it's donations? No.
It still is, Jim.
An amazing thing that I find, there's a queue of people wanting to
That's right.
donate.
It's a funny system, you know.
It's an amazing organisation, RNLI. Even when anything would be raising money, don't mention the RNLI, and they would be running after you to put money in your...
It's different to what it used to be altogether. I'll tell you what's lovely is that the monument they've been Wick now.
Oh, yeah.
My gosh, it's lovely. I still go and visit that and have a look at the names and bits and pieces of it. It's lovely.
What a size of a...
It's no everywhere it has one of them now, you know.
I know. And it's...
Angel of the North, they call it.
Is that what it is?
I think so. I heard some people saying it's Angel of the North.
I think is it giving and...
Giving with one hand and losing with the other, I think. That's
yeah.
You can get something from it, but you can lose heavily to it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a lovely job.
I think the one thing that, well, not the one thing, but I think the thing that takes the responsible sort of people that are using the Pentland Firth is treating it with respect.
Oh, for God's sake, Jim, aye. Oh, I think it's the only way to do it, Jim, is treated with respect. Aye. There was an Icelandic ship there when we stayed in the island. This Icelandic ship, he capsized off the lighthouse at Stroma, about a mile and roughly a mile up it. But he came down there and he didn't expect any problem. But the boat turned turtle. And it's an Aberdeen trawler. They picked them up with Jim, the crew. But they reckoned that the tide coming down, the first of the flood tide, and he was sitting the ebb tide, and when one met the other there, they reckoned they'd capsized the boat there. That's where she is. She's lying out north of Stroma. Well, he was still in the ebb tide, meeting this new tide coming down.
Jeez.
And they reckon the inside, the west tide, the flood tide must have got in below the other lot and swept the feet from below the ship. Oh dear.
And none of that you would see with the visual eye.
No. And this is in broad daylight.
Gee.
The skipper of the tower says he knew there was something wrong because he could see the derrick swinging out over the side of it when she went. Like.
Aye.
And we heard them, the skipper had told the crew on the tower when they picked them up, the skipper's wife was on board and a 4-year-old son. They got in a life raft, and the skipper says that they'd been playing cards down below the crew. And he says one guy actually came in a life raft with a hand of cards in his hand. It would be a great hand. That was it with Stroma Lighthouse. That happened in broad daylight. And I'll tell you how bad it was. There wasn't much sea because we were at Hoona that day, but it was a northerly wind. We were at sea, we were a 24-foot boat, you know.
You know what, it all reminds me of going back to before our parents, and it's a true, very, very true saying, and I always rings with me, John.
Aye.
Any time, as Burns right up, any time we would hear of somebody lost at sea, be it a crewman or all hands,
Absolutely.
she would turn and say, "That's the price of fish."
Oh, that's the true price of fish, as he said to him. Yes, I've heard that saying before.
It's
an awful thing, you know.
That's the price of fish.
Terrible it is. There's an awful lot of men lost nowadays, you know.
People would even have the audacity to think they would get it cheap. What's cheap? Life's not cheap.
As you say, it's a true price when the life goes trying to get it, Jim. It's terrible work, it is. Really.
And that's fishermen's lives, and lifeboat crews are going out there with no fear of their life either.
Dear. I'll tell you one thing I always maintained saved crews' lives was when they started putting shelter nets on them.
Oh yeah.
Must be a lifesaver, that one. I always maintained that.
Yeah, you look at I've read some of the books, disasters and off Lossy, off the Fife coast.
Everywhere, every week, Jim.
Everywhere, and there's loss of life. It's
terrible.
Just horrendous.
Just terrible.
That must be open decks and...
See that other, I was telling you about that ship that capsized, but the trawler picked all the crew up. See that Kempford that sank when he had a load of concrete desertion.
Yeah.
That's exactly the same place as that Icelander.
Is that right?
Whatever happened there or not, it's the same.
Well, obviously the
same. I know exactly where he was because Wally Simpson was watching him on his Wally from Stroma. He was watching him on his computer, you know. And Wally was watching him and seeing him coming down from Duncan's area, coming down there, and he went and had his lunch. And when he came back, there was no boat. And he thought there was something wrong with his computer, but the boat had sunk. You know?
Wow.
My God, he said he couldn't believe it, like, no.
And
They never got to cruise. That's still in a boat, Jim.
Aye. That's right.
Oh.
Yeah, but did he see the emergency services?
I'm not sure what he did about it, Jim. I couldn't say, like, aye. But they were looking for it immediately about that time, like, I think, aye.
I remember that.
Aye.
And he was a seemingly well-known...
Aye, they were good seamen too, I think, as far as I can gather. Like.
Yeah. It just highlights how important it is that there is certificates and skippers.
Right.
And,
I mean, just can't be any Tom, Dick or Harry to get into that stuff.
No. I just feel that should stick in this idea that cheap fish.
They're no cheap at all, Jim.
No cheap.
No.
Men's lives are at risk.
Oh dear, it's awful when they lose their lives. They're at it all the time and still doing it. Keep going on, like, you know.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
It's the cruelty. It's
a cruel scene, all right.
But it's fascinating just speaking to you. But I love anytime I am speaking to you, John, about taking up the Pentland Firth, because, as I said, I've always been born and brought up thinking, as I said earlier, 6 hours high water, half an hour, 6 hours low water.
Yeah, so
and you'll be coming, I think you said to me, would I be right in saying there was 3 hours one way and 9?
Yeah. I'll tell you, there's 2 or 3 places like that. Scarscrape Point is one. There's the east side of Dunnet Head, and there'll only be about an hour and a half of flood tide, and 9.5 hours of ebb tide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you know that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
There'll be no way putting that on a tide book or anything like that.
Unless you know all about it, like, but you need to know it personally at things, you know.
That's obviously why you still get people, fishermen phoning you, asking you what to do, because it doesn't matter, obviously, how powerful their boats are.
Down on the Castle and Bay in that area, close in the land I'm talking about here, maybe a half a mile or a mile off, that'll be 3 hours of west going tide there, and 9 they going the other way. That's the opposite to what it is at Brock Bay. That's only about a mile, 2 miles apart. Oh dear. Unless you're showing that things, you would never even twig it. No. Scourger Head, that's another place. Scourger Head's all north tide there.
Is that right?
Probably get maybe a couple of hours of south going. That once the tide gets strong on a point, it gets stronger and stronger, and it wears off the point then, and all ingoing tide then to meet it. It's a strange thing. It's all, but that's things that have been not thought up, but known about for years and generations. Oh dear.
And does it vary?
Oh, that's constant, that.
Is that right?
Oh, tide is constant.
Yeah, so that difference is from the normal 6
normal for 6 hours running, there's whatever, you know, that's various stuff that'll just fool anybody, you know.
Yeah, but this 3 to 9 in 2 different areas going the opposite.
Yes.
Is that constant?
Oh, that's constant. That's there all the time. Every day the tide runs, that's constant.
And has charts got that?
Oh God, I could not tell you, Jim. They should have it, like. I've seen the diagrams of the Pentland Firth with arrows on it, and some of them they'll no even match up, you know.
Is that right?
No.
But
that one's there, I know they're just absolutely constant.
And is that close in?
It's maybe a half a mile off, Jim, to the shore there.
So
once that east tide starts there, that's for 9 hours then.
So if you were, you know, on the Orkney side where it's a big wider sea.
It'd be quite different there, maybe.
Is it? I quite often see boats go that way, and I just wonder if it's maybe more.
They're maybe getting less tide or something, Jim. Depends what time they go, of course.
Of course, aye.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So they would really wait until they got the tide going west if they were steaming west.
In all honesty, yes, it would be, Jim. They'd be more to their advantage, like.
Aye.
Yes, we
I
all
remember Ian when he had the old owl scare. The previous one to the one he built. I remember he was coming east, from the east, coming into Scrabster, and he had a role in the Merry Men of May.
Oh,
and shifted his boat wheelers, not the wheelers, but the
just
fish in the fish room.
It's a horrendous place that can have a awful repercussions there. My God,
It's strange too when you can look out from the land and just see the white water.
You'll see it. See it, the Merry Men Away they call it. Strongmen call that Merry Men Away.
Aye, but
the Old Abes, that was another name for it. Maybe not many people have heard that.
No.
The Old Abes, strongmen called it something.
Is that right? And what caused that?
I think it's coming up with making shallow water starts and but why it should go to the deep water is another story.
And although it looks just white water, would there be a lot of current and
currents all going into and the more heavy westerly sea you get, the worse everything is there. It just escalate there,
Right. So it can be
horrendous at times, Jim, but other times unless there's weather, it's just not too bad at all. There's so many days that you don't see the ripples in it,
Is that right?
Every time
Well, from what you're saying there, I think my father was not far wrong, a boiling pot. That's what he used to always describe it as.
Certainly wasn't wrong on that one. That's right.
Yeah.
I've heard other people call it boiling pots.
See, when you're going west, just say you're steaming west and you're going through the Firth, the Pentland Firth, and then you're clear of the Orkneys, and you're just at the north coast. You wouldn't have the same tides then, would you?
Oh no, Jim. As soon as you're clear of the land, clear of the Firth, it'll drop down to 3-4 knots as soon as you're up it. Because it's got the expanse there that it's jammed in here and trying to get all through there at one time. It's not the same at all.
It still matters. It still affects them. Even with big modern boats now, when I think of it, my father, we used to think it was a battleship, the size of it. And it was 54 feet. Some of the boats nowadays, our battleship would go on their deck. and they'll still, I'll be speaking to somebody and they'll say, when will you be in Scrabster? And they'll just say, they'll still say, it depends on the tide.
Sure.
You'll be watching them on the computer. And you'll see them no making the speed they were hoping to make. There would be maybe 7, 8, 9 knots. And as soon as they're coming closer to the Firth, maybe...
Or lucky if they're at 2.
I've seen it at 5 and 3.
Dear. You can go down yet and still it's the same thing. You'll see a guy, he's hit the tide wrong and he's just merely crawling up the Firth.
But this is maybe coming down the west side of Orkney.
The west side of Orkney.
And they'll be steaming, making good times, 7, 8, 9 knots. And it's just where they're coming south. And they come close to the Firth. It's 4 or 5 before, and they know that. Because they'll say, it depends. They know they'll not give you a time of arrival because it's dependent.
It alters all the time down there, Dear. It can be difficult for shipping. That still is that,
Fascinating. It's a huge subject and so important as well.
Dear. As you say, no wonder they've got to get skipper's tickets and things there,
Well, and it's really annoying when you hear people making idiots of themselves going out to sea in some crazy makeshift.
Just acting to go.
And then the next thing, there's a lifeboat called out to them. They're putting men's lives at risk because they don't value their own.
Yes, exactly. Our lifeboat here was short ago. I think the guy was about 40 miles in the sea in a canoe thing.
Yeah.
Aye. I think it's his family that he phoned from. It's lucky getting a mobile phone to phone.
Yeah.
Oh,
But the other thing that fascinates me about the crew and past crews, there's certificates for outstanding seamanship and bravery and that with the coxswain of the lifeboat.
sure.
I'm sure you're aware you can see that with the certificates in your wall here.
Yeah.
And Doogie was relieving wing
Yes.
on one, and he's got a certificate.
Yes.
But
Oh.
speak to any of you, and it's just a shrug of the shoulders. There's no.
No.
It's just like, well, it's just another day in the office.
You get on with it, and that's it. Man. Somebody's got to do that thing, and you just get on with it.
I know.
You'll
It
never
must
hear.
be just a way of life.
Oh,
you know?
they never say very much about it at all.
I mean, even young guys, you know, you think, in some ways, you think they're going to be risking their lives, but they're so proud and pleased that they got a crewman's job.
Oh, sure.
It's just like
Oh, absolutely.
I've done it, I've got there.
Ah, dear.
Well, there's probably a mother and father are thinking, gee, that's the last thing we needed.
Oh, I just see it. Ah, dear.
Yeah.
Aye, it's great how the public support them all the time, I think. Aye.
Yeah. So, go back to the situation we stayed at, or any of that boats, all they need to do is switch off their engines.
Oh, if they stop there, they'll
And is that the same in a gale of wind or storm or?
well, if she's got a good grip of the sea, he'll never touch the island. Like.
Yeah.
Maybe if a gale of wind blowing straight on the shore and the tide's slacking off or something, they could have a problem, you know.
Uh-huh.
There was a big tanker, super tanker. He broke down in the fog in the Pentland Firth, and the crew abandoned ship because they thought she was going to go ashore, and the tug picked him up out between the Pentland Skerries and Duncansby. He was on the west side of Stroma. He went right down round that and out through the channel at the east end. They all jumped into the life rafts. Aye. So I think it's a Greek. You don't mind that? It's the Orkney tug that towed him into Kirkle.
I think I remember that right enough.
I think
How
that.
long ago would that be?
Oh God, it's a good while ago.
Aye.
It was 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah, well, I would have been starting ago then.
But they were panicking and got out of the ship. Like they were thinking she was going to hit Stroma. Like
Is that right?
they never touched this thing.
So obviously
It's just
that
a classic
knowledge,
example of that. Like.
Aye, that's interesting because that knowledge is no.
No, they didn't know that she would miss it. You know,
Aye.
they were certainly expecting her to hit it.
Gee.
It's a tug that, and I'll tell you something. The tug, the Orkney men took the ship into Kirkwall, I think it was, or Scatterflow, I can't remember. But they took her in there. They just fixed her up in a couple of hours, kind of thing. You know, it's a bleeding fuel pipe or something. The Orkney men just fixed her, which they should have done at the sea. You know.
Uh-huh.
I think that's the problem. I think they panicked and just get out of here, kind of thing.
The only thing that I would say in not defending them, but I remember when the Torrey Canyon,
Yes.
sank,
Seven Stones.
aye, down at the channel.
Yes.
Now they reckon that he knew for miles that was going to happen, but they were, with the way their engines and things are, they couldn't have stopped it. They could slow it down and put it in the reverse, but seemingly it wouldn't have stopped
Too
it.
slow, too late and doing it. It'd be too late there.
Possibly, but
I heard a story about her, the Air Force, they were out to blow it up and put it on fire, you know, because they were thinking the head fella, he fired a rocket at it and they missed it, but the junior fella coming behind him had it. There's a story I heard about that. And if Christus beat us, that's another one. up and on the chicken rock, I think. And the skipper, I think he's like one of those guys that didn't have a ticket at the time, like a Greek or whatever. And he thought he'd passed that chicken rock about an hour before he hit it. This is the difference between a competent skipper and that.
Yeah. But it obviously shows that competent is important and giving respect. But if they get themselves in a wind against tide or bad weather,
getting a rebel,
they can still get.
It's easy done. Like. I think it was John Flake, he called the boy from Westry. I think it's John Flake, his name was. He was in the Merchant Navy, and he was in Rotterdam or some at the places, and he went up to the Greek office in the place, and the boy says, are you looking for a skipper's ticket? He was looking for a skipper's ticket, £25, and he got one. And they had 2 or 3 yesterdays, and they were sitting at home in his house, and he said he'd heard that much rubbish going on about his tickets. His wife says, I found some skipper's tickets or something. He says, put them in the fire. It was only radio she wants to make. He told her to put them in the fire. That's worth nothing. He was skippering on the Orkney boat saying, I think he was in the Nordfjord or something.
But you're not talking about John Davidson?
No.
Okay.
Charlie's still the go?
No, don't think so.
Oh dear.
I don't think so.
Oh, yeah.
He was a character.
I heard of a story about him. Charlie came along the road and I was speaking to Davy Coachman. No, Davy. Good God, what do you call him? Coachman.
Oh, Coachman. Yeah.
At the pay there was David. Wally Coachman. Wally was working at the harbour at the time, at New Harbour.
Aye.
And I was speaking to Wally out to the pub. Wally had a bottle of rum and it's smoking here. Johnny came along the road walking, making for the ferry for Orkney. And he says, hey, here's one, my old skipper coming. Wally says, Johnny came along the road and he says, aye, how are you doing, boys? I know, but I can't Johnny quite well myself. He says, you'll take a dram, John. And Wally out the bottle of rum and they handed him. It wasn't even broken. The seal was whole. Give it to Johnny. Take a dram later, Johnny. Oh, aye, all right. Johnny's take a quart off her, take a sluice at her, top her. I put her back in his own pocket. So nobody said any more. It's in the yarn. And Johnny took off with a bottle and he got away to the ferry and took the bottle in again. Wally said, yeah, buggers off of my bottle. So when his show day came round now, that's about the spring of the year. Show day came round, Wally Coachy went to Orkney to the show. And over he went, and he got up into all the tables, sitting all these things. And who was at it with Johnny, with all his prize hens, bantams, what heavy yarn, London thing, rosettes on winners, all this. Now Wally had a carrier bag, and he got up and he rang 2 of their necks on and put them in the bag. He says, that's for your bottle of rum he took off me. And it wasn't a Wally that told me, it was Johnny. There's nothing I could do about it. I rang 2 of the necks and put them in a bag. That'll do my dinner, is this really bottle of rum.
He was doing ferry runs between the islands.
Aye, that's right.
And, I remember him giving me a business card. I think I might have hoped for it. I meant to look. I think I still got a copy of it.
Oh, he's not only going out, Charlie.
All the services that he provided.
Oh.
And there was, I think there was 2 on it. Rebellions quelled and virgins converted.
Charlie was something else. Oh, dear. Oh, Johnny was good guy, right?
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
They were all good seamen.
Oh, for God's sake.
But I've, John, as far as what we've been talking about today, I've personally known a lot of
gone back
fishermen that have been speaking to you, contacting.
Gone back to the Orkney men, they're the only nation or men that never complained at the ice band at the end.
Is that right?
Never complained.
Aye.
Never complained.
Uh-huh.
And they're the only nation, because they complained personally, cursed some of them, you know.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, they accept things. And
one guy came here from Peterhead, and he'd never been there before, like, and I went down to tell him what ice he'd had, like. And he says, how much ice is that we got? I said, 7 ton. Oh, he says, this boat will now hold 7 ton. I says, well, I'll tell you what, and he finally got, because old Hughie Sampson told me, never do them, give them, he said, I'd rather get a ton too much than a bag too short. That's how Hughie himself said it. And he says, this boat will hold 7 ton. I said, well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm either going to put in a 7 ton or I'm going to put in a right amount. No, he says 7 ton will be fine. Just soon called his bluff. That was the result trying to. Oh, dear.
I remember my father used to say when going way back to the trawlers, like in Grimsby Hill trawlers, and
sure.
that they were coal boats. You know, they were drumming in coal end.
Oh, sure, running the coal like that.
Aye. And he says they were great sea boats.
Oh, God.
Because he said there'd be, and he says the ballast on them, he said there'd be full of coal going to sea.
And then
and full of fish coming
back.
back.
The fish would subsidise the weight then.
Aye, so they were.
And I have heard of them, they didn't catch much, which left them unstable a wee bit.
Yeah.
That was a great thing. They never stopped that first. Never stopped for weather, and we always used to watch them and just going, we lives in it, you know.
Is that right?
With the heavy weather, that never stopped it.
Uh-huh.
No.
And that would be a bit of a risk, would it then?
No, not to them at all. Like, no.
And with the fact if you had good ballast and all that.
That's right, Jim.
Is that helping?
It would certainly help under the conditions there. Like, it wouldn't be a place you'd be wanting to sail without ballast, you know.
No. So anything light or top heavy or that?
No great at all, Jim.
No.
They would mostly have fish, as you say, to counteract the stores and coal and everything down there, you know.
He used to always say that they were really great ballast and that.
Yes.
Good seaboat.
They had diesel electric ones at one go, like way back long ago, like
Well, John, I think we'll fold it up. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for listening to Seafood Matters Podcast. You can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your podcast. You can join me on Instagram, Twitter or Facebook by searching for @Seafood Matters Podcast, or get in touch with me through my website www.seafoodmatterspodcast.com.